Have you ever run into a knife whose design you liked so much that you were willing to overlook certain flaws because everything else was just awesome? How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And if you have that one knife that you just know is flawed, but it didn't stop you from loving it and carrying it all the same, let me know which knife has that X factor. And while you're down there, make sure to high five the like button. Today, we're talking about this Curtis F3 mid slicer flipper tab delete. Look, there's a lot about this knife, okay? And I have been looking at the Curtis custom knives for a long time. There was some information put out there in the past. Other reviewers had bad experiences. And I just never went down that road. It's a lot of money to spend when you're unsure. But these typically go for around $695. So that level of work is not cheap. And then Old Dominion EDC, viewer on the channel, reached out to me and said, hey, I've got one. Do you want to check it out? Absolutely. Yes, I am excited for this opportunity because it means that I get to check it out without spending almost $700 myself. So huge shout out to Old Dominion EDC for being so kind and trusting to lend this to me. I'm going to take good care of it, but we are going to get down to the nitty gritty. We're going to see just how good this knife is. Is it worth the moolah? Because it costs quite a lot. Today, we're going to talk about it. This is the Curtis Customs F3 medium slicer. Let's go. All right, guys, it's time to talk about a knife that I've wanted to check out on this channel for a while. All right, this is the Curtis F3 medium slicer. I believe it's also a slim with the flipper delete. Check out the contrast between the pivot and the hardware and the scales and the matching backspacer. Like, that's just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The blade shape, even though it's a regular drop point, looks good. You've got this beautiful hollow grind right here. This cutout for flicking with your left or your right hand. It's beautiful in my opinion. Is it expensive? Yes, $695 is not cheap. And the only reason why I have one of these to actually review is due to Old Dominion EDC, who was so kind to send this my way for review. So if you're out there, if you're watching, thank you, because this is really, really cool. Now, you might be wondering, well, over time, has he fixed the issues with the lock? Does this one have lock stick? Does this one have lock rock? We're going to get to that. If you want to see what my findings are on that part, stick around for a while. Before we get there, I want to talk about some things. First and foremost, Magna Cut on the blade, milled titanium on the handle scales. We've got this backspacer, which I think is pretty awesome. The backspacer, by the way, looks really aggressive. You've got those thin teeth there, but they don't really stick out. You don't notice it except for in the back of your palm. It actually provides some extra grip, but it doesn't stick out past the handle scales, which means that it's not uncomfortable. It does not create a hot spot. The pocket clip is something that I'm a huge fan of. I love that pocket clip. You'll notice a theme with Curtis Customs where it's all about like looking down a gun sight. You've got the crosshairs. It's very much a Clint Eastwood style knife, sniper style. I don't know. It just screams, this is a man's knife and you're going to enjoy it. Now, this jimping, I have looked at other reviews and people have complained about that jimping on the spine of the blade. When I put my thumb there and I bear down, does it create a hot spot? A little bit. It's not comfortable by any stretch, but what does it do? It achieves its goal. It gives you grip. Like, your thumb's not going anywhere. And because it has a adequate finger cutout here, you can choke up on here. This knife is a tool. Now, the name of the company is Curtis Customs, and Curtis the maker, calls this a custom. Here's the funny part, okay? When it comes to the knife community, we are all undecided about what constitutes the custom. Is it a full custom? Is it a partial custom? Is it a mid-tech? And there's so many different variables and definitions, and people can't agree, and that's just too bad. Now, mid-tech is one of the most agreeable terms, and what mid-tech is where one person did most of the work. Maybe they had help with a CNC machine and they outsourced for a few small things. That's what a mid-tech is. And that's kind of what I would classify this as. If you look on the Curtis Customs website, it'll tell you that he's a one-man army. He does all the knives by himself. He outsources for little to nothing, but he does it with the help of a CNC machine and, computer programs. And I'm good with that. Listen, when you're a one-man army and you're putting out as many knives as he does, hallelujah, give the man a high five, because that's not easy. And I have seen reviews where people have said that this knife feels unfinished. And the one that was called out on was a plain Jane, no milling on the handle scales, just gray. And you know what, like I reserve my own opinion. Opinions are all subjective. In this case, my opinion is that it doesn't feel unfinished. I would actually venture to say that this feels more finished than my Strider AR .75. And that's saying something, because that knife is also not cheap. But it definitely has an American-made feel to it. American-made knives never feel as complete or as finished as their Asian counterparts. And that's because we don't have the manufacturing prowess that China does anymore. That's a video for another time. But my point is that it's about as finished as you can expect of an American-made knife. Now, I did mention that I was going to talk about the lock. So on the lock, is there any blade play? Left, right, up, down? No. However, it does have lock rock. Watch the lock bar when I apply pressure. See it move? If you don't know what lock rock is, that's what lock rock is. And I'm going to say that that's unfortunate. And many people would actually say that that's unacceptable for a knife at this price range. Here's my opinion. When you hold the knife, you are putting pressure on that lock bar, and there is no lock rock whatsoever. When there's going to be pressure on the blade, are you going to be holding the knife? Oh, you are? Cool. Not a problem. However, it is still kind of a problem, because at this price point, there should be no lock rock. Now, in my research, because I did a lot of research before I recorded this video, what I found was that people in the comment section of knife reviews for Curtis Custom knives had one of two minds. Some people said they didn't have the issue at all. Some people said that they had the issue, but after dialing in the pivot, the issue went away. And some people said that it's a known issue that's been happening for a while. The truth is that I don't know how old this knife is. I don't know if it was born yesterday or 2 years ago or 4 years ago. I don't know. But what I do know is that it's something that a lot of people might be willing to live with. To get their hands on Magna Cut that's been properly heat treated with beautiful milled titanium, this really sick pocket clip. And I know pocket clip shapes are it's more important that they get the job done and they don't get in the way. But when they can accomplish that and it looks good, yeah. Now, is the milling cutout for that pocket clip, is that, are the tolerances there amazing? No, they're not. But they're functional, and the extra space around that pocket clip insert is not annoying to me. The aesthetic on this knife is gorgeous. I absolutely love the way it looks. I love the way it feels in the hand. I like the fact that the pivot isn't just a plain Jane screw. As someone that appreciates knife design, I can tell you that these things all appeal to me. I like the fact that they did a flipper delete on these, and it's hard to find. You won't find a flipper deleted version on DLT, but I did root around on the internet and you can find them with the flipper delete, so that's pretty cool. The deployment hole being exclusively for thumb flicking or reverse flicking is awesome. That is what I like. The action feels really good. And the acoustics also sound good. It almost has this ratchety sound. And for some reason, that's addicting to me. And despite the lock rock, I still find myself wanting one. Here's the thing. I had a conversation with the owner of this knife, and I said, because he told me that he understood that this knife had flaws, but he loved it anyways. He had a few gripes, but he loved it anyways. And that sounds exactly how I feel about my Strider AR .75. I love that knife. It's not perfect. It has flaws, but certain knives have that X factor that put you in a state of mind where you're willing to overlook those flaws. The question I have for you, are you willing to overlook these flaws? For me, I think the answer is yes. And the hard part is that while this is in my possession now, it does need to go back to its owner at some point, and preferably probably to them, probably sometime soon. This is a knife I would love to have in my collection. With the lock rock, it is kind of disappointing, but knowing that that lock isn't going anywhere when you actually hold the knife, that's kind of comforting. Remember, these knives are all made by one person in one shop, all doing all the work by himself. And that does have a custom vibe to it. It also means that the knives are not going to be perfect, because whenever you have someone that's a person that's involved in most of the making process, it's only as perfect as they are. And we as people have flaws, just like the knives that we review. Guys, let me know what your thoughts are on this beautiful Curtis Customs F3 slicer with the flipper dab delete, medium, slim. Let me know what you think. I'm really interested. I am looking forward to ranking this one. That ranking will come out next week. But in the meantime, if you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, boo-hoo, there's a button for you too. And if you've watched this far and you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.